I still remember the day I met my husband, Michael, back in college. I was 22 and he was 23. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, and I was studying for a test in my campus courtyard. As fate would have it, Michael came up to me and started a random conversation. I knew he was hitting on me, and I didn't want anything to do with men at that time because I recently broke up with my then ex-boyfriend. I had recently removed a pregnancy, and he was upset, accusing me of murder. I told him that it was up to me to decide what to do with my body. My ex-boyfriend wanted me to keep the baby. I would have loved to keep the baby, but I was young, a student, and I wasn't ready to be a mother in my condition. Additionally, I was afraid about what people would say, how my family and friends would judge me. Hence, I went to the clinic and had it removed. When my ex-boyfriend found out, he broke up with me. From then on, I felt like he should have been there for me, so I decided to swear off boys. It was under these circumstances that my future husband approached me. I didn't want to be disturbed, but his smile was warm, and his eyes sparkled with a kindness that drew me in. We struck up a conversation, and before I knew it, we exchanged numbers and started dating. I was in love again, and soon after, we were inseparable. We shared the same dreams, the same aspirations, and our love for each other grew stronger with each passing day. This time, I was careful not to get pregnant till I was done with college. During those early years, we were idealistic and hopeful. We talked about marriage and starting a family, dreaming of a bustling household filled with the laughter of children. We graduated and found jobs in our various fields. After we got married, we started trying for a baby. After 6 months of trying, we went to a fertility doctor for a checkup, and she said everything was fine. Then after another 7 months, I began to feel like it would never happen. Then the feeling of guilt about my pregnancy removal in college began. I wasn't a religious person. I thought spirituality was all superstition. However, there was a part of me that thought the universe was punishing me. I didn't want to share it with my husband because I didn't want him to judge me. All the superstitious beliefs evaporated soon after because I became pregnant. But then instead of the pregnancy to bring me closer to Michael, it drove a wedge between us, partly because I was so protective of my pregnancy and wouldn't allow him to touch or have sex with me while I was pregnant because I was afraid of losing my baby. We survived it. Our dreams came true when our precious son, Will, was born. He brought an indescribable joy into our lives, and we reveled in the magic of parenthood. All my guilt about the pregnancy removal was gone, time to start afresh. But tragedy struck when Will was just 2 years old. A sudden illness stole him away from us, leaving a gaping void in our hearts. The pain was unbearable, and grief clung to me like a heavy cloak. I mourned the loss of my child every day, my heart trapped in an endless cycle of sorrow. In an attempt to heal our wounded hearts, Michael and I decided to start anew. We moved to a quiet, middle-class neighborhood, a place where we hoped to find solace and begin the long journey toward healing. We yearned for a fresh start, a chance to rebuild our shattered lives. As we settled into our new home, the weight of grief still hung heavily upon me. Every corner of our house seemed to hold memories of Will, and I found myself haunted by his absence. The emptiness echoed in the rooms, a constant reminder of the child we had lost. It was during this vulnerable time that I met Pastor Emily, a 41-year-old charismatic and compassionate woman who lived next door. Emily is a widower and her husband died 7 years earlier. She was childless and was among the senior pastors in the local church. When we moved into the neighborhood, she was the only neighbor that welcomed us with a casserole. Her infectious smile and genuine warmth made it impossible to resist her friendly overtures. She took an immediate liking to me, sensing the sorrow that clung to my every step. She had a way of making me feel comfortable around her, in such a way that allowed me to tell her about my darkest secret that I hadn't even shared with Michael. She infused spirituality to the root of my problems and indoctrinated me in such a way that I felt like God was punishing me because I removed a child while I was in college. She convinced me that the only way to get redemption is through Jesus. Pastor Emily, a widower with no children of her own, became a steadfast presence in my life. She was wealthy but doesn't really show it. Her late husband left her a chunk and she also works part-time as a CPA, plus the church revenue. So, she works from home and had time to cook and often drops by with home-cooked meals, a kind gesture that brings happiness to me because Michael loved her cooking. She was happy to cook for us and she would always ask me if Michael loved the food. I felt like the satisfaction she gets from bringing food for us is determined by Michael's preference. Unbeknownst to me, I failed to realize that Michael was getting close to her. After a while, I noticed that she stopped bringing food to me and I thought nothing of it. I would later find out that she was texting Michael to come to her house to eat, so when Michael comes back from work, he goes to her house and eats before he comes home. Michael came home from work earlier than me, so I didn't notice his absence and I was even blind to anything wrong with it because I trusted Pastor Emily with my life, my secret, and my husband. When she came over to my house we would talk for hours about life, love, and the power of faith. Although I had never been a particularly spiritual person, her unwavering belief in a higher power intrigued me. Day by day, she slowly took bites out of me, slowly indoctrinating me to her Christian beliefs. One day, as we sat sipping tea in my living room, Pastor Emily extended an invitation that would change the course of our lives. She spoke passionately about her small church, describing it as a place of solace and healing. Despite my reservations, I felt compelled to accept her offer, hoping that perhaps I could find a glimmer of peace among people that I thought had all the answers. I cautiously broached the subject with Michael, uncertain of how he would react. To my surprise, he was open to the idea. I felt like he, too, had been searching for answers in the wake of Will's passing. Perhaps I was projecting. Together, we decided to attend the Sunday service, with hopes of finding solace in a community of believers. Months passed, and Michael and I found ourselves attending Pastor Emily's church regularly. The congregation welcomed us with open arms, their kindness and empathy helping to lighten the burden of grief that still weighed. Pastor Emily became part of the family. I stopped cooking at home and rather eat at my work cafeteria. I only eat breakfast and lunch, so I made a mistake of feeling comfortable with Michael eating at Pastor Emily's place all the time. As the weeks went by, my suspicions about Michael and Pastor Emily's relationship grew stronger on Michael's birthday, when Pastor Emily bought Michael a 911 Carrera Coupe. That was his dream car. I knew Pastor Emily had money, but to spend $150K on a car for a neighbor made me uncomfortable. I told Michael to return it, he refused, and it started a big fight that ended with him staying away from home for 2 days. I begged him to come back home, and sadly I thought Pastor Emily was my friend and my spiritual guide, so I shared my story with her. She built my confidence when she convinced Michael to come home to me. Michael never returned the car, and I didn't bring back the topic again. Then soon after, Pastor Emily had some plumbing issues in the middle of the night. She claimed that it was too late to call a plumber and it couldn't wait till morning, so she called me to get my permission to allow Michael to come over and take a look. I know what you were all thinking. How could you allow your husband to go over to your female neighbor's house at 9 p.m. at night? She was my pastor. My spiritual guide. We watch her preach every Sunday, the woman I share all my secret with. We look up to her as a prophet of God. She is the woman that convinced my husband to come back to me when he left home. Why should I see her as a threat? She is a 41-year-old woman, and my husband is 28. How could he even think of it? But boy was I wrong. That night, I didn't know what time Michael came home because I slept off. The following morning, I asked Michael about it, and he told me that she had a serious plumbing problem. I was so stupid to believe him. Then after the first plumbing issue she had, it was almost like every appliance in her house was breaking down every night, and she would call Michael for everything. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, plus I held her in reverence, so I allowed it to happen. I just took it as a favor for a mother figure. Michael started coming home from work later than usual, which was strange because I usually come home a few hours after him. He would often give feeble excuses about working multiple shifts. Though my intuition screamed that something was amiss, I pushed aside my doubts, desperately clinging to the hope that my beloved husband would never betray our vows. Desperate for answers, I reached out to one of Michael's coworkers, hoping to shed light on the truth. To my dismay, they confirmed that Michael had not been working multiple shifts as he had claimed. The shattered fragments of trust sliced through my soul, leaving me more wounded than ever before. But the universe has a way of revealing the truth, no matter how hard we try to ignore it. One evening, as I found myself consumed by a whirlwind of doubt, I made a bold decision. I turned on the location tracking feature on Michael's iPhone, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure what I would find, but I needed to confront the growing darkness that loomed over our lives. To my shock and horror, the location on his phone revealed that he had been spending time at Pastor Emily's house. My hands trembled as the truth stared back at me in stark clarity. With a heavy heart and newfound strength, I confronted Michael about the damning evidence I had discovered. His face paled, and his eyes darted nervously, searching for an escape from the web of lies he had woven. But he insisted that his visits to Pastor Emily's house were innocent, merely to eat meals and sometime do some handy work for her. He turned the tables on me about not being willing to cook. That was when I knew I had to put an end to Pastor Emily's cooking for my husband, but then it was too late. I built up the courage to confront Pastor Emily to stop cooking for my husband and to call a handyman if she needs some work done. That brought friction between us, and she agreed but felt aggrieved. I thought I had put an end to it, and I had regained control over my marriage, but everything changed when I came home one evening and Michael was waiting for me in the living room looking as angry as I had ever seen him in my life. When I came through the door, I asked him what the problem was and he started regurgitating every secret that I had told Pastor Emily in confidence, including the baby removal before we started dating. I felt betrayed and subdued. I didn't think my marriage would survive this. It was then that I realized that Pastor Emily was trying to destroy my marriage and steal my husband. She must have been working on me since I moved into this neighborhood. We were way past confrontation. I wanted to expose her, so out of desperation I decided to do something that I wasn't proud of. The following Sunday, I dressed up like a human billboard printing a message that Pastor Emily stole my husband, and I appeared in front of the church entrance for every churchgoer to see. It was definitely embarrassing for my husband. He saw it but was too ashamed to confront me, so he went home. I thought it worked. My intention was to expose both of them and force my husband to come back to me. Some of the church members called me to check on how I was doing, but they immediately turned on me when Pastor Emily used the bully pulpit to spread lies about me and even accused me of abusing my husband. Months passed, and the chasm between Michael and me deepened. Despite my pain, I longed for reconciliation, a return to the love we had once shared. But my heart grew heavier with each passing day, burdened by the knowledge of his deceit. We haven't even lived in the neighborhood for more than 2 years and were considering separating. I suggested marriage counseling, but he refused. We started sleeping in separate rooms as I wanted him to be the one to take the initiative, since I felt like I was the only one that was trying to make this marriage work. It's been 4 months since we stopped going to Emily's church and I have severed connection from her. She was still the pastor, and it didn't seem like my antic affected her congregation at all. It was almost like the church was a cult absent of a mind of their own. Reminds me of when Trump said that he could shoot someone on Times Square and his supporters would still vote for him. Yeah, that's what it felt like. I felt alone and ashamed. One day I was on my way to work. I was about to enter my car when I saw Pastor Emily taking out the trash. I couldn't believe my eyes. She was pregnant. What a stab in the back. I couldn't hold myself, my eyes filled with a mix of anger, sorrow, and a desperate need for closure. I confronted her and she denied any wrongdoing, claiming that her pregnancy was the result of a spiritual awakening, a miraculous blessing. I told her that I wasn't one of her sheeps that she can easily deceive. She called me crazy, threatening to put a restraining order on me. I left for work vowing to expose her to the news media and the world. Deep down, I knew the truth. I could no longer deny the signs, the red flags that had silently waved in front of me. My trust in both Michael and Pastor Emily had been shattered, and my faith in love and friendship lay in ruins. In the midst of my pain, I found solace in the love and support of my friends and family. They enveloped me in their warm embrace, helping to mend the broken pieces of my spirit. With time, I realized that the betrayal I had endured did not define me. I was stronger than the pain that threatened to consume me. I filed for divorce, severing the ties that bound me to a relationship tainted by deception. It was a difficult journey, filled with tears and self-doubt, but I knew it was necessary for my own healing and growth. As for Pastor Emily, she continued her ministry, but our paths never crossed again. I found a good therapist to help me heal, one that nurtured my wounded soul without ulterior motives. Through counseling and self-reflection, I rediscovered my own resilience and the power of forgiveness. Years have passed since that tumultuous period of my life, and I am still not ready to be in a serious relationship. Strangely enough, my ex-husband is not with Pastor Emily, but she seemed to have given birth to a second child, perhaps another miraculous blessing? Today, I stand tall as a survivor, a woman who has weathered the storm and emerged stronger on the other side.